Is Greg Garner, our concentrator, and I believe that Ellis Smith is going to be doing an introduction for us. Ellis, are you ready?
I'm ready. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, I appreciate Greg giving me the opportunity to introduce him. We've been friends for a long time in the execs. Greg Garner had served as the president of the San Diego Credit Association since July 2001. He joined the organization in 1987 and held numerous roles and positions, including vice president, adjustment division manager, and sales manager. Greg developed expertise as an insolvency trustee, and in that capacity has facilitated the rehabilitation when possible and the liquidation when necessary of financially distressed companies. Greg will share more later, but in May 2019, he orchestrated the merger of San Diego Credit Association with NACM Commercial Services, creating a regional credit management organization supporting all states west of the Rocky Mountains. Currently is serving as Vice President of Business Strategy. Greg holds a BA degree in political science from the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, go Bruins, and an MBA from the University of Redlands. Greg is proud of the long membership enjoyed in his organization in the Executive Association of San Diego, dating back to 1983. Greg's father, Carl, was the original exec, and Greg cut his teeth as an associate. He served as president of the association and president of the associates. And upon elevating to the exec level, Greg served 6 years on the board, including a term as president in 2009. Greg has served on the board of directors of the National Association of Credit Management, NACM, and the San Diego Downtown YMCA. In his free time, Greg can be found on the basketball court, officiating at both the college and high school levels. He previously served 3 years as the president of the San Diego County Basketball Officials Association. Greg and his beautiful wife, Jan, celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary in April 2020. They share their love of travel, biking to the beach, and their Pomeranian, Ricky. Greg grew up in Redondo, Rancho Bernardo, but has called Mount Soledad home for the past 24 years. With that, I turn the floor over to Greg. Thanks a lot.
Ellis, thank you so very much. I appreciate that lovely intro. And I want to begin, of course, by thanking Robert. I'd like to thank Vicki and the entire board and the entire membership, including any guests that are with us today, for the opportunity to present to you what was known as San Diego Credit Association and is now operating under the flag NACM Commercial Services. So I'm going to start with a video that I think is apropos as it pertains to credit management, and a rather prominent business owner who I think learns in this video a little bit about credit management. So let me do a share screen and see if I can pull this off. And here we go.
We're not seeing it yet.
Ah. You cannot see that?
Nope, not yet.
Oh, shucks. Let's see how we're
When you go to share screen, make sure you click on the actual frame you want us to see and click on share audio as well before you click on the share button.
Okay. Well, if this little video clip doesn't work, it won't be the end of the day. Let's try this.
There we go.
Voila. Now let's get it to play.
Watch me obtain a hamburger without the necessary fee.
Oh, a customer.
Yeah.
I'd gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. Don't forget, Tuesday.
Okay. So, can everybody hear me okay?
Mhm.
Good. So, that businessman, one of my favorites of all time, illustrates quite well what we'll be talking about a little bit later in the presentation. And that is, in fact, the extension of credit when selling goods and services, and the importance of actually getting paid for those goods and services, even when you're selling cheeseburgers to Wimpy. Okay, so now I'm going to try to get my PowerPoint up and working, everybody. Voila. Where's my slideshow? From the beginning. Okay, folks. So NACM Commercial Services, I'm going to share a little bit about some evolution that's taken place with the organization over the last year or so. As Ellis kindly shared, I had served as president and CEO of San Diego Credit Association since 2001. My new capacity, due to a merger that recently took place about a year and a half ago, I'm now serving in a vice presidential role. I am serving as vice president of business strategy for what is now called NACM Commercial Services. So I'd love to share some things personal in my world. That's what I've always loved about execs. This organization has so many layers and facets to it. Obviously, we all are fantastic resources for each other from a business standpoint. But what's really unique is how we get to know each other. And that's one of the reasons why I've remained in this organization as long as I have. It's a very special group of folks. So that's crazy me and my wife, Jan. We've been living here in Mount Soledad, the Mission Bay side. I kind of jokingly call it the poor man's side of the hill. But we love an outdoor and active lifestyle, and so living in the Pacific Beach, Mission Bay area truly lends itself to the love for that type of lifestyle. We don't have children. However, we have one furry child, which apparently is the term used these days. You're looking at Ricky. She is a rescue Pomeranian. We think maybe about 5 or 6 years old. She came from the high desert area, Apple Valley, had a couple of litters, but she's just a sweetheart and we love her dearly. We take her everywhere that we can. We travel, and here are just some snapshots of my wife, Jan, and I in some pretty cool locations. The beach shot up at the upper left, I presume you're seeing the screen in the same way that I'm seeing it. That's where we're sitting on the beach, dining in Zihuatanejo. And that is an absolutely spectacular spot. If you've ever seen the movie, The Shawshank Redemption, the movie ends on the beach right there in Zihuatanejo, Mexico. Spectacular. The middle photo is an old guy that tried to climb up on the letter A in Amsterdam. That actually is me sitting up there. Luckily, I had some 20-somethings that gave me a boost to get up on top there, so that worked out pretty cool. The other photos, pretty much recognizable. Paris, Danielle, you're going to recognize that, of course. The lower left is when we were in Rudesheim, Germany, and one of the many castles that are in that region. The middle photo, one of our most common locales to visit is Hawaii. And the bottom right photo, we had an opportunity for the first time to get to Alaska. And that was a spectacular trip. And I think on that particular day when that photo was snapped, we were kayaking and hiking and just, you know, kind of communing with nature, as they say. Spectacular, fun times. Ellis was kind enough to mention that one of my side hobbies is officiating basketball. Here's just a picture of me in action. It's one of the few rare times in that picture that I'm not getting screamed at for making bad calls. I absolutely love officiating. It's one of those side gigs where, for me, it clears my head, as strange as that may sound. I can't think about business. I can't think about the stresses of business and what comes with that. Too focused on what's happening on the court, and it's incredibly therapeutic for me. And I've been very fortunate to have served as president of the Basketball Referees Association in San Diego. I think now I'm in something like my 32nd year of officiating at this level. So how I got here, it's extremely important that I acknowledge these two beautiful people. That's my mom and dad. That's Carl and Dolores Garner. And yeah, if it weren't for them, I wouldn't even be on this planet. So I owe them a world of thanks right out of the gate. But I am second generation, both in the organization with which I serve and in the execs. And so if it were not for the guidance and the mentorship that I received from my dad, Carl, I would not be who I am and where I am today. And I'll forever be indebted to them. Little background, they come from Cleveland, Ohio. And so when they were young, probably in their early 30s with two little kids, they took a gigantic leap and moved from where all of their family was in Cleveland and said, San Diego is where we're going to take a shot. And I thank them every day. Having grown up here in San Diego, up in the Rancho Bernardo area when there was nothing there, one stop sign, it was a phenomenal opportunity to be raised in that community. So my dad, and I'm lucky, both my mom and my dad are still with us today. So a little bit of history real quick. San Diego Credit Association, the organization that I was serving as president for, was, believe it or not, founded in 1896. 1896. And we were recognized a couple years ago. I may have shared a photo at one point. We were recognized by the city of San Diego for being one of the few businesses in San Diego with 100+ years of service. So that was kind of a fun function that we attended. All of our employees went over to Balboa Park and we received an award. Something we're very, very proud of. We've now merged into and with an organization very like-minded, literally a mirror image of ourselves, known as NACM Commercial Services. And that merger actually was completed in May of 2019. Just a brief comparison between the two. We were founded in 1896, Commercial Services founded in 1925. We had about 800 members at the time that we orchestrated the merger. Now, with the two organizations combined, we have over 2,500 member companies that are part of our organization. We do the exact same thing, credit reporting. We run industry credit groups. We're a commercial collection agency, and we do, in fact, provide business reorganization services. One of the major differences is that independently, San Diego Credit was responsible for markets in the Southern California region, Colorado, and New Mexico. Now, by combining with NACM Commercial Services, we have a footprint that is actually the entire Western United States. Before I go on, I want to thank and acknowledge members of the execs. These are, this list is actually those that have saved my bacon, for lack of a better term. These are folks that have assisted me, serviced me in some way, pulled me out of problems, and otherwise been just super awesome execs members coming to the rescue as needed. This list I'd also like to thank. These are the folks in the Executives Association, at least as of today, that we have been fortunate enough to serve. And so I'd like to thank these particular execs members as well for putting their confidence and their loyalty into our organization when it comes to credit management services. We're pretty stoked about the list of clients and members that we have. Beyond the execs, I just wanted to name drop a little bit. I cannot tell a lie. These are the logos and names of just a small handful of businesses that are members of now NACM Commercial Services. These are folks that are in our local area. And we've been very, very proud to take care of some of the most prominent businesses that are here in our local San Diego business community. I mentioned our region of responsibility. This is just an easy image to take a peek at. Everything that you see in orange is now the responsibility in terms of territory for NACM Commercial Services. So it's been an exciting time for us to build this business with our friends at NACM Commercial Services to create this footprint that is both challenging and rewarding at the same time. So real quick, NACM, I kind of am trapped in a world of alphabet soup, for lack of a better term. And NACM means nothing to many people, but it means the world to me. Simply put, as the logo shows, it stands for the National Association of Credit Management. And the reason I wanted to show everybody this slide is that I wanted you to get a feel for the structure. If you envision an umbrella, that's the National Association of Credit Management, under which that umbrella, there are a number of what are called NACM affiliates. And my organization, NACM Commercial Services, is one of those affiliates under the national umbrella. It's a unique structure in that as an affiliate, we are a completely independent and autonomous organization. However, we have to meet stringent standards set forth by the NACM in order for us to fly their flag. So whenever you see NACM and the letters NACM in my business's name, simply put, that's the National Association of Credit Management, and my organization at the affiliate level is simply called NACM Commercial Services. There are affiliates in other cities and other regions around the United States. So what are our core services? This is really, what I think you all want to know about. I've laughed, sometimes even shed a tear, I think, over the years. Our classification's a tricky one in the execs. Credit management can be so vague. Not everybody fully understands it. I think one hears the word credit, and it's just human nature for us to internalize and think, oh my God, my credit, my credit. In fact, that's not what this is at all. Credit management, and we're going to see some slides that get into it, is about your organization and the credit that you grant to your customers by way of delivering goods and services, but not getting cash at that moment, and instead billing for it and booking accounts receivable. That is managing your credit that you grant. So how do we help businesses? Well, our core services are simple. We are a resource for business credit reports, collection agency services. We run what are called industry credit groups, and perhaps more importantly, continuing education. There's a running joke in our industry that nobody grew up saying that they wanted to be a credit manager. Not one person, ever. You don't go to school to study credit management. Universities don't offer majors in credit management. Most people in most of their businesses get there in one of two ways. They're either a small or arguably medium-sized business where the owners or the president or the treasurer or the controller is wearing many hats and has to handle that function, or in large corporations, people sort of default into a credit management position coming out of places like customer service, maybe the accounting department, but credit management, nobody grew up learning how to do it. And it's an extremely important function because if you're managing your accounts receivable, you are in charge of one of the 2 or 3 largest assets on your company balance sheet. So, how do we ensure good credit management? How do we make sure that we are addressing how our organization extends credit? Well, it starts with policies and procedures. And nobody likes writing policies and procedures. I'm the first to admit that. But it's critically important that they exist in your organization because it provides a basic roadmap. And at its core, the simplest 2 points to consider when you're writing your credit management policies and procedures is one, that they address how you can increase your sales by extending credit to credit-worthy customers, and simultaneously minimize the risk of loss by restricting or even denying to non-credit-worthy applicants. It's an extremely basic concept, but incredibly important if you want to protect the monies that come in the door and your cash flow. So one of the tools that is used in determining credit risk is a business credit report. And if you think about it, it's no different than on the consumer side. If you and I go and get a car loan, or if you and I go to John to get a mortgage, one of the most important and the first things that happens is that lender is going to pull a credit report and look at the credit score of you and me as individuals to determine what? If we're worthy to be extended that loan and extended that credit. The same applies in the business to business world. It makes absolutely no sense in a world where information is power and it's everywhere, data is everywhere, that we as business owners and executives aren't using those kinds of tools to gather information to know who our customer is and are they creditworthy. So when do you need credit information? How about on a new credit application? New credit applications are those folks that are coming to you and saying, hey, I want to buy your goods and services and I want to apply for credit. And then you do your underwriting and risk analysis using the information provided on that credit app. Current customers, important. Just because they were good on day 1 doesn't mean they're good on day 300. And you want to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening with even your current customers. No secret, COVID has impacted a lot of businesses and your customers and arguably their credit worthiness. You update your files every year. That should fall under policies and procedures. It goes hand in hand with current customers. Just because they were good on day 1, it may have changed. How would you know unless you're updating your file and pulling a credit report at least once a year, even on your customers, your current customers? And of course, you want to look at a credit report if you're having some problem children, those that are not paying their bills, those that are delinquent, those that are giving you excuse after excuse. Is it just you that they're providing these problems to? Or will a credit report reflect that they've got some major problems, including maybe not paying others, but also tax liens and issues like that? So, as I said earlier in the presentation, as a core service, credit reports, and we are the source for you to get business credit reports Dun & Bradstreet, and we're going to have Bob with us in a moment, Experian, Equifax, and our own NACM business credit report. Again, business to business credit reports. Getting close to the end of my presentation. The back end of credit management is collecting receivables. The Popeye video, while humorous, has a phenomenally important message. At the end, you'll notice his cash register came up, no sale. Your sales mean nothing unless you're collecting your accounts receivable. And although this bar graph could be better, here's the takeaway. At 90 days past due, 90 days, that's 3 months. If your account has not been paid to you in 90 days, statistically speaking, you have a 70% chance of collecting that money 100 cents on the dollar. I have a running joke. Receivables are not like fine wine. They do not get better with age. So what's the guide to improved collection procedures for you folks internally? Don't assume the accounts know your credit policy. Make sure you have good communication with them. Know your customers individually if you can. Relationships mean everything. When it's time to pay the bills, the accounts payable people pay the guys they like or the guys they know. Keep your credit records current. In periods of concern, and COVID is arguably one of those, maybe you consider tightening your collection procedures. Try to discourage extended payment terms. Yes, there will be times where you have to work with your customer, of course, but don't let that be your first salvo. Try to discourage that. Get payment in full. And pursue partial payments with requests for the balance. So that goes hand in hand. If you find yourself having to negotiate a payment schedule, fine, but make sure there's a complete understanding that the full balance is owed and there's a drop dead date when everything has to be wrapped up. Shorten your collection schedule as well. You know, when do you start making your phone calls to your customers to pay the bills? Shorten it up with those that are starting to show slowness. And I said it earlier, keep your lines of communication open and try to resolve those disputed matters as quickly as possible. Time is the killer to collecting receivables. When all else fails, we're a collection agency. So we're helping with the front end credit reports and the back end collecting your accounts receivable. We have an amazing team of collectors, and I urge you to engage us, because the longer your receivables remain unpaid on your books, the less chance of collection. Okay, folks, so that brings me to the end of my part of the presentation. I went a little longer than I expected, but I have a really, really special person that I've invited to come and speak to you today. Bob, are you out there?
I'm here.
Outstanding. So everybody, I'd like to introduce to you a very good friend of mine. Both at the business level and personally. We've had some good times together over the years. NACM Commercial Services partners with some incredibly solid resources, and one of them is Dun & Bradstreet. And if you haven't heard of Dun & Bradstreet, I would be shocked. They are the gold standard for business credit reports, and they basically invented the industry. They were the first ones on the scene. Bob O'Brien is currently serving as the Senior Relationship Manager for Dun & Bradstreet. And so I've asked him to talk to you a little bit about what's happening out there in the world, COVID being one of the important factors that we're dealing with, but how to use automation that exists out there today. And he's going to go from there and talk about analyzing risk, avoiding bad debt, and prioritizing the receivable collection. So without further ado, Mr. Bob O'Brien, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it. And thank you all for having me today. It was fun listening to some of your stories and got to see some race car stuff. And it was this is a nice group, I can tell. As Greg had mentioned earlier, the organization that he belongs to, the NACM, I manage all of the NACM, what we call affiliates, throughout the entire country. So my team and myself are very lucky to be able to speak with executives like yourselves in a variety of different areas. But it gives me the ability to understand what's taking place within companies that are small, mid-size, and large companies. And what's really important now, and one of the reasons that Greg and I were talking, thought it'd be very worthy for you to hear, is that a lot of things have changed within this last year. Obviously, we're all adapting to working from home, right? There's a lot of things that have changed, but a really key part of what's really changing out there now is how companies are managing risk. When I talk to high-level executives and ask them, what are your biggest business issues that you're dealing with today versus 2 years ago? The things I hear, we're trying to increase our cash flow. We're trying to reduce as much bad debt as possible. We're our business, but we're trying to grow it smarter. And we're trying to manage and keep our existing customers, right? So there's a lot of difficult things that are taking place because there's not a lot of face-to-face, right? I mean, a lot of things happen, when you're in an office and you can walk over and talk to somebody about an account or whatever it might be. And that isn't happening right now. And it's probably not happening for a while. But what it's done, regardless of, when this virus is cured, what it's told us in the business world here is that we need to do things differently, and we need to start doing them now. And we need to start looking at the future, regardless of another pandemic was to come down the road or whatever it might be. But what it's saying is that you cannot be doing business the way that you were doing it in the past. You have to make changes. You have to accept things like automation. You need to really take advantage of technology to really help your business, right? Our job in working with executives at companies is really to help them get their business stable, continue to grow it, and help them make sure they really understand where the risk is. And there's a lot of risk, right? We hear it every day. We keep seeing companies that are folding and unfortunately furloughing people. And, there's a lot of things taking place. And it's very hard for you to understand what exactly is going on out there. So what it's requiring companies to do now, that what we used to call was a nice to have, is really what we're calling now is must to haves, right? So little things that you need to start thinking about. And what I wanted to do today is just kind of plant some things in your head to think about and take a look at your business and see if you're doing some of these types of things. Because if you're not, I highly, highly recommend that you look at some of these things I'm going to recommend to you to put in place within your business. If you're a CFO or CEO, whatever your role might be within your company, you really need to take a look at things like your policies and procedures that you have in place when you're granting credit. When you're looking at a new piece of business coming on, much harder than a couple of years ago to know who this company is, how do they pay their bills? They seem like a good company, but are they going to pay us? Like Greg said before, a sale is only as good as the cash comes in the door, right? You can make all the sales that you want, but if you can't collect the money, it's really doing you no good. And it's cost your company quite a bit to get to that point to not get that money. So what do we do? So what do we recommend to companies? We need to look at strengthening your front end processes when you're granting credit to new customers as well as existing customers, right? The majority of the business that's coming in these days right now is really from the existing customers, right? New business acquisition in some markets, very strong, but in a lot of others, they're really just trying to hold their ground and keep their customers. But which customers are the ones that you really need to focus on keeping, right? If I was to ask you today, do you know what the risk is in your entire portfolio of customers? And I mean risk meaning, do you know who's going to potentially go out of business within the next 30 days, next 60 days? And how much money do they owe you? And how much money do they owe you? And are they part of another organization that's within your portfolio that you didn't realize are actually related to each other? And what happens if one goes down and the other one goes down next, right? What could that do to your business, right? So it's really about being proactive, right? Unfortunately, a lot of companies are happening now are really working or living in a reactive world, right? They're dealing with, oh, I just found out my customer just filed for bankruptcy. Well, what if you knew about that 30 days ago or 60 days ago that was potentially going to happen? What could you have done? Well, you could have changed a few processes. You could have put the account on hold. You could have reduced their credit limit so more product doesn't go out the door until you figure out exactly what's going on with that company. One of the things that we've seen with a lot of companies, and a lot of companies are starting to implement now, is making sure that on new business as well as existing customers, they have processes in place that proactively push information to them, alerts and monitoring your existing customers and new customers as well. This is an area that we have found that companies were putting these type of processes on their new customers come in because they didn't really know a whole lot about them, but they weren't doing a whole lot with their existing customers. And they started finding out that they're really getting burned on their existing customers because they have no idea that they were actually having financial problems and cash flow issues. And what does that mean? Well, you're trying to get your money from them, and there's also 5 other people out there that are trying to get their money from them as well. So wouldn't it have been nice if you knew 30 days prior, so you could have make those collection calls and talking to these companies and actually getting your money paid, right? So there's a lot of things that companies are looking to companies like, like a Dun & Bradstreet, but it's really in general. This is not a D&B pitch in any way. It's a kind of we need to start doing things today, and we need to start doing things differently. And I put up, when I do a presentations, I put up 2 slides, and I put up the definition of the word proactive and the definition of the word reactive. And when I put the reactive up there, and I have talking to 20 companies in a room, 18 of them raise their hand and say, that's the world I live in. I react to risk. And the 2 that raise their hands are ones that have taken advantage of technology, taking advantage of doing things different, automation, right? It's very hard now when somebody wants to send a credit application to you, or how are they sending it to you? How are they sending it to your credit analyst? Could you do something like putting an online credit application on your website and point the customer there and have them fill out information and then bring information in from a third-party company to actually tell you what the risk of that company is, right? You never want to take the word of a company sending in, and I'm giving you, these are my top 3 companies that are going to verify that I'm solid. That's no good. You might as well just take those and throw those right out the door. You want to know information that they don't know, that other companies like a Dun & Bradstreet knows exactly how they're paying their bills, and are they really a risk to you? So, one of the things that companies are doing is really taking advantage of things we call scoring, right? The ability to predict what is going to happen in the very near future. Can you predict if a company is going to start paying delinquent in the next 90 days? Or can you predict that this company is going to actually go out of business? And what does that mean to you, as a CEO of your company, as a CFO, whoever it may be? The goal here is to make sure that you're getting paid, right? And your company's biggest asset, one of its biggest assets is cash, right? Without that, you go under, right? So it's extremely important that, you take this word proactive and put it literally right in front of you every day and say, you know what, I got to look at our processes. I got to look at our policies. What are we doing? Which category do we fall into? If you can put a real gut check, and at the end of the day, you look at it and go, you know what, I am working in a reactive world. I need to fix this. I need to figure out what can we do for our company? What can I do for our company that's going to help change this? And it's going to help me mitigate risk, right? So that at the end of the day, that money is flowing back into your company. You're not laying off people. You're still growing. You're maintaining. You get through this pandemic, and now you have processes in place that you're ready for the next big thing that's going to potentially hit, if it ever does, and hopefully never does. But you need to start to be ready for the future, right? And this is extremely, extremely important. And companies are starting to realize it, and it doesn't matter, if you're a small company, a mid-sized company, or a Fortune 100 company. Everybody has similar issues.
Thank you so much. That's such great information.
Yeah, absolutely. And the great thing here is you have Greg as a resource, right? So, I can't say it any more, you have a resource in Greg, you have a resource in myself, right? If you leave today's call and you go back and you think about some of these things and they really do hit, you could check a box and it says, I'm not really protecting the company's biggest asset, cash coming in. What can I do? I highly, highly recommend that you give Greg a call, have a talk with him. If he needs to get me on the line with you, we just talk through your processes and say, ooh, here's a spot right here. If we could do this for you right now, and it's not going to cost a whole lot of money, and guess what? It's going to help you bring that cash in. It's going to help you protect the company and maybe keep the company moving as it goes through the next 6 months of whatever we're going to go through here. So
Awesome.